Lake Worth's family is asking for your help solving the murder of this woman, Makeva Jenkins.
Yeah, it's been more than a month since a masked intruder shot and killed the mother inside her home.
On the night of June 29, 2017, around 2 a.m., 33-year-old Makeva, who was pregnant, and her 3 children were asleep. Her husband, Euri Jenkins, was in the garage of their home, converted into a barbershop, alongside Makeva's brother Key and a friend named Dimitri. Suddenly, a masked man entered the garage with a gun, demanding money and threatening to shoot. The intruder forced the 3 men into the house, directly upstairs toward the bedrooms. Concerned for his family's safety, Euri pleaded with the intruder to allow the children to be taken downstairs, and, surprisingly, the intruder agreed. Dimitri took the children downstairs, removing them from immediate danger. Meanwhile, the gunman ordered Euri and Kay to lie face down, then searched the rooms until he found Makeva asleep in one of them. A gunshot was heard shortly after, and the intruder fled the scene in Dimitri's white Dodge Charger. When Euri and Key entered the bedroom, they discovered Makeva with a fatal gunshot wound to the head. Key made a frantic 911 call, pleading urgently for help, saying that his sister was fighting for her life and urging responders to get there immediately. Witnesses recalled Euri crying as he held Makeva's head, repeatedly begging her not to leave, urging her to keep breathing, saying he could not do life without her. Emergency services arrived, but Makeva and her unborn child were both pronounced dead shortly after they reached the hospital. Makeva Jenkins met Euri Jenkins, the son of a pastor, at a New Year's church gathering in 2009. She found him extremely attractive, but it took her nearly a year to initiate a conversation with him. When she finally did in 2010, their relationship progressed quickly. They appeared to connect instantly and became close in a short amount of time. Soon after they began dating, Makeva told her family that she and Euri were expecting a child, but the relationship was moving swiftly, which raised some concerns among her family. Given that this was Makeva's first serious relationship, they suggested she take more time to get to know him. However, Makeva was an adult and had long envisioned a life of love and family. So, trusting her judgment, her family chose to support her decision. Eventually, after the birth of their son, the couple decided to solidify their commitment by getting married. Their wedding took place in a small church ceremony attended by close friends and family. Following their marriage, Makeva and Euri faced significant challenges. Makeva's business was struggling, and she later shared publicly that her family experienced a period of homelessness. This financial strain came at a time when she also learned that Euri had been unfaithful. More than an emotional betrayal, the affair resulted in another woman becoming pregnant. The news was deeply distressing for Makeva, and she chose to end the relationship, asking Euri to leave the home. However, he later returned, expressing remorse. Despite everything, Makeva took him back, possibly holding on to her desire for a complete family. Together, they closed the failing business and launched a new venture, a consulting firm named the Prime Enterprise Group. This time, the business quickly gained traction, and around the same time, Makeva became pregnant again. She later gave birth to a healthy baby girl, her 3rd child and 2nd with Euri. To outside observers, including casual friends and followers, it may have seemed as though Makeva and Euri had built a strong, loving, and successful life together. If love, loyalty, and resilience shaped the life she built, why did it all come crashing down in a single night? Detectives immediately began their investigation and noted several irregularities. First, they observed Euri's behavior at the scene, which some considered unusually calm and even inappropriate, as he was reportedly joking at times. While trauma affects individuals differently, this reaction raised concerns. Second, although the intruder claimed to be looking for money, nothing was stolen from the home. He fled only with Dimitri's vehicle, leading investigators to question whether robbery had truly been the motive. The fact that the intruder allowed children and an adult to leave the scene unsupervised also seemed inconsistent with typical behavior during a home invasion. Further suspicions arose from the fact that the intruder targeted Makeva specifically, even though she was not a threat and could have been left unharmed, as the others were. Instead, she was the only one attacked, suggesting she may have been the intended target. Investigators explored the possibility that the crime may have been a case of mistaken identity. Makeva's brother mentioned that the masked intruder had asked for Quest, the nickname of their mother. Meanwhile, Dmitry and Euri confirmed hearing the same. Reportedly, their mother had previously encountered issues with a local drug dealer after allegedly using counterfeit money. The theory was that the attacker may have intended to harm Quest and mistakenly targeted Makeva instead. However, this theory presented its flaws as Quest denied any involvement in such a situation and claimed no one was after her. Moreover, Makeva and her mother did not live together, as they resided nearly 45 minutes apart. Furthermore, they had different names. Their relationship was distant, making it unlikely that a drug dealer would mistakenly identify Makeva's home as Quest's. Still, the intruder's specific mention of Quest's name remained a troubling detail, especially since it was not public information. Finally, the fact that the intruder demanded the keys to Dmitry's car suggested familiarity with who owned the vehicle, adding to the suspicion that the crime was not random. What began as an apparent robbery quickly evolved into a complex investigation. Initially, there was not much evidence to directly connect anyone to the murder until police discovered camera footage. The footage captured Dmitry driving toward Euri and Makeva's house in his Dodge Charger just a few hours before the murder. After locating the white Dodge Charger about a quarter-mile from the scene of the crime, investigators found a receipt from Miami Subs dated the same day as the murder inside the car. Investigators reviewed surveillance footage from the restaurant and saw Dmitry accompanied by another man, who was later identified as Jovan Joseph. Dmitry admitted to investigators that both he and Joseph had visited Euri's home earlier that day, but he claimed he returned alone that night. However, surveillance footage later showed a vehicle resembling Jovan's trailing closely behind the white Charger that evening, contradicting Dmitry's statement. This raised the possibility that Jovan may have been involved in a planned robbery targeting Euri and Makeva. Makeva had publicly shared information about their wealth on social media, which may have attracted attention. However, nothing was stolen during the incident, and the intruder focused immediately on Makeva, raising further questions about the true motive. On August 9, 2017, which would have been Makeva's 34th birthday and about a month and a half after her murder, her family held a press conference asking anyone with information to come forward. They wore shirts with her picture and spoke about her character and impact on the community. However, Euri was absent from the press conference. This absence raised suspicions, particularly given that the killer had knowledge of the home's layout and where the children slept. When questioned about Euri's whereabouts, Makeva's relatives responded vaguely, stating they did not know where he was or what was going on with him. This led some to speculate whether they had suspicions about him. Initially, Euri and Makeva's marriage appeared stable, aside from a prior incident of infidelity that had occurred years earlier. However, when investigators examined Makeva's financial and personal records more closely, they discovered a $500,000 life insurance policy. This discovery was significant because Euri was under financial strain, owing $220,000 in unpaid child support from a previous relationship. Under Florida law, failure to pay child support could result in incarceration if the parent is found to have the ability to pay, but willfully fails to do so. Given the financial pressure, the life insurance policy emerged as a possible motive. Detectives learned that Euri had contacted the life insurance company just 6 days after Makeva's death to inquire about the policy. However, he was not the listed beneficiary, as Makeva had changed it to another family member before her death. This indicated that if Euri had any plans to benefit from the policy, they were based on incorrect assumptions. Police re-interviewed their witnesses, starting with Dmitry, who became increasingly suspicious due to several factors. His car was used in the crime, he was allowed by the intruder to leave with the children, and he had been seen driving to the house with Jovan following behind. Under pressure, Dmitry confessed that he had introduced Euri and Jovan, adding that Euri had paid Jovan to act as a hitman to kill Makeva. Dmitry claimed Euri believed he was the beneficiary of the life insurance policy. He also said he was unaware of the specific plan for the night of the murder, but admitted that he had introduced Jovan to Euri to arrange Makeva's killing. According to Dmitry, after the murder, the masked man left in Dmitry's car, and this detail supported the theory that Dmitry may have willingly provided access to his vehicle. He also did not alert the authorities after the crime, further suggesting his involvement. Despite his eventual cooperation with the police, Dmitry was implicated in the planning and execution of the crime. Investigators recorded a conversation that led Euri to make an incriminating statement. However, law enforcement did not act immediately. It is unclear whether they were preserving trial evidence or had another reason for the delay, but Euri was not arrested until December 2017, 3 months later, after which he was charged with first-degree murder. This development was not surprising to Makeva's family, as her father publicly stated that while the arrest did not come as a shock, it brought a sense of relief. From the beginning, Euri had not participated in press conferences, appealed for public assistance, or shown the behavior typically expected from someone seeking answers about a missing loved one. Euri later gave an interview where he described Makeva in positive terms and spoke emotionally about their children. The interview gained widespread attention after his arrest. However, his behavior earlier, being calm and even joking with officers at the scene, contrasted sharply with his later demeanor, raising further doubts about his sincerity. Despite the evidence and testimonies, Euri pleaded not guilty and maintained his innocence, claiming that God would ultimately vindicate him.
Euri, did you kill your wife?
No, I didn't.
You said you were innocent.
I am innocent.
Well, then what happened?
God will vindicate me.
Makeva's family expressed their grief and frustration, particularly because Euri had once been part of their family and was now facing trial for her murder. In 2019, Jovan Joseph pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. His attorney referred to the outcome as one of the most favorable plea deals for a homicide case he had seen in years.
Jovan Joseph just got probably one of the sweetest deals I've seen in a homicide case in the 34 years I'm a criminal defense attorney. Theoretically, the judge can give him as little as 5 years in the Department of Corrections, and the most he can get is 20 years in the Department of Corrections.
Jovan was 19 at the time of his arrest, which meant he would likely still have many years of freedom after serving his sentence. Dmitry, another suspect, was not arrested until 2020. Then, in 2021, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter. Despite cooperating with authorities, his sentence, 15 years of probation with an ankle monitor and only 45 days in jail, of which 30 had already been served, raised questions. This outcome appeared lenient, especially in comparison to the severity of the crime. Both Jovan and Dmitry testified against Euri in exchange for reduced sentences, and their cooperation was a key part of the prosecution's case. Euri Jenkins' trial was scheduled to begin in January 2020, but it faced several delays. Jury selection had to restart after some prospective jurors overheard conversations about the case from Makeva's family. The trial was further postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and then finally began on April 26, 2022. Jovan Joseph testified that he had been facing financial hardship and discussed his situation with Dmitry. Dmitry, aware that Euri had previously expressed a desire to hire someone to kill Makeva, introduced the two. Furthermore, Jovan claimed that Euri offered him $20,000 for the murder, half before and half afterwards. However, there was a notable discrepancy in Jovan Joseph's statements regarding the payment he received for the murder of Makeva Jenkins. Initially, Joseph told investigators that Euri paid him $1,500 up front to carry out the killing. However, during his trial testimony, Joseph stated that he was promised $20,000 for the murder, with $10,000 paid in advance and the remaining $10,000 to be paid later. This inconsistency was addressed during the trial, where Joseph admitted that he deliberately provided false information to detectives during the initial investigation, claiming he received only $1,500 to mislead them. Jovan also stated that Euri was motivated by a $500,000 life insurance policy and had openly discussed his desire for Makeva's death. According to Jovan, they staged a robbery, including a fake hostage situation designed to mislead investigators. One tactic included referencing Makeva's estranged biological mother, hoping it would divert suspicion. Despite conflicting statements about payments and questionable behavior by Euri, The testimony painted a clear picture of the premeditation and financial motive behind Makeva's murder. Euri Jenkins was convicted of first-degree murder in May 2022 for planning and carrying out the murder-for-hire plot that led to the death of Makeva Jenkins. He was sentenced to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. The prosecution presented evidence that Euri hired Jovan Joseph, offering him $20,000 to carry out the killing. At the time of sentencing, Euri Jenkins was 35 years old. He is currently serving his sentence at the Century Correctional Institution. How could a man once trusted as a husband and father become the architect of such a heartless plot? As Euri Jenkins serves his life sentence behind bars, one can only wonder, was it worth the $500,000? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you're new to the channel and enjoy this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel for upcoming episodes. Your support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, I'll see you on Urban Crime Stories.